Great seeing you here again. My name is Luc de Custer, founder of the Custer Academy. And in this video, we're talking about the PMBOK 7th edition, Tailoring, Models, Methods and Artifacts. We're in the part 4, Models, Methods and Artifacts. And we're looking at the other models that we can identify or that can be used in project management. But before we continue, don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button. And every time we have a new video, YouTube will inform you about it. So let's have a look at the first model, which is the conflict model. And in the conflict model, I first will have a look at what we call the positive methods to resolve conflict. When we look at conflict, we see that conflict happens everywhere, every day, in projects, in life, in business. And of course, since people in projects may be under a lot of stress, we can also expect conflicts to happen in projects. When we look at positive resolutions to conflict, we can consider two methods. The first method is confronting or problem solving, and the second method is collaborating. We will look in detail into these methods in one of the following slides. We also have other methods that exist. We can consider some neutral or negative even conflict resolving methods. And what we have, first of all, we have compromising, we have smoothing or accommodating, we have forcing, which is in red, it's considered to be a very negative method, but it can be applied in certain cases. We also have withdrawal and avoiding, and when we look at the different elements, PMI is not in favor of forcing. That's why forcing is in red. But let's have a look at the positive conflict resolution methods and learn a little bit more about them. So when we look at the positive conflict resolution methods, the PMI prefers two methods. First of all, we have the confronting and the problem solving method. We apply this when the relationship is important. Both parties are looking for a solution that respects the relationship and the people trust each other. It's very important to see we want to go on with each other, so we have to find a solution here. We have to confront the problem. We have to resolve the problem. Collaborating, here it is when both parties consider multiple views on resolving the issue, and we try to find the best way to do it. This is one of the methods that is used a lot in projects. We look at other conflict resolution methods, compromise. When you do not find a satisfactory solution, a compromise is a method where both parties give something. Before, in the project management courses and the PMBOK, compromise was considered to be a lose-lose solution where both parties are giving away. Nobody is basically winning. But I feel that compromise in this way, in the new PMBOK, is considered a little bit more positive. We try to get out of the conflict by finding some things that we can give to the other party without losing too much. We also have smoothing and accommodating. Sometimes it's accepted to keep a good relationship between the parties, or when one party has more power. It's not necessarily a good solution, but it can help you to keep the relationship. You don't, let's say, fight about it. You cannot win, so you have to accept it. You don't win exactly, but you can keep on working on the project and the things may get better. Forcing, it's pushing your decision. It can be acceptable in specific situations. I've just imagined firemen who are on a job, they're working on let's say, saving people or just putting out the fire. At that moment, you don't have the time to find a solution. You have to act very quickly. And in that case, forcing, you give orders to the people what to do. It's not considered when we have time, but when we don't have enough time to deal with a project or with a problem, forcing may be a solution. Withdrawal or avoiding, here we don't challenge the problem, and sometimes it happens that the problem in itself will disappear. It's not considered to be a very positive solution to conflict, but experience shows that sometimes withdrawal or avoiding may help you. In my personal experience, sometimes we see a problem and later on that problem disappears on itself. It doesn't always happen, but in some cases it can happen, and then withdrawal or avoiding would be a good solution. Another element is about negotiations and what are the outcomes of negotiations. Typically, we negotiate for many things. We may have some freedom in negotiation. We talk about people. We try to discuss a price or a solution to a problem, and we may have different outcomes. Now, first of all, is a win-win scenario where both parties are happy about the outcome. They like the outcome, they found a solution, and a win-win scenario is what we would like to have. That's the best result from a negotiation. We also can have a win-lose or a lose-win. In that case, one party will be unhappy. And from my experience, I've seen it that the party that loses may try to get a revenge later on. They try to get the loss back, and it may end up being a disaster for you because they may do certain things. I remember some friend who bought a car, really got a very good price pushed down, and the car salesperson or the garage where the person sold the car, later they were doing something to the car, so the people who bought the car would have more expenses for repairing. They would charge for the time to search, although they did it themselves. Unfortunately, these things can happen where the losing party will sabotage. You may have the feeling to win at the beginning, but later on, you may end up to be the loser. It's sometimes also when you have the cheapest solution, you win because you have the cheapest solution. The other person may, not be so happy, or they may be happy. Anyway, the problem is when you buy cheap, you may expect problems happening. So although you won because you have a good price, at the end you still may lose. And then lose-lose, it means all parties are unhappy, nobody is satisfied. And of course, it creates more problems afterwards. What we want to have is a win-win scenario. But when we deal with negotiations, we have to consider some basic principles. When we look at negotiations, in many cases, people describe negotiations as being soft skills. While some of my friends who've been working in industry, who have been negotiating, they said basically negotiating is a hard skill, is using a number of principles that you are dealing with to find the best solution for you and eventually for the other person if you want to have a win-win. We want to find the best solution for us, and we also want to guarantee a successful cooperation. What we want to do, and what I've done in many cases, is that we want to identify what the other party wants. And can we give that element? Can we give certain reports that we have? We have them. We don't really need them, but the customer may like them when they have the reports, when they have certain information that we can share with them that our systems are in fact already generating. And these elements, that additional information, may be of great value of the other party. And we can give something to them, basically, which doesn't have real value for us as such. So these are elements that we can try to find out. When we do negotiations, the theory of negotiations and the courses, typically people are talking about the BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So you try to find best ways to deal, to avoid too many negotiations. You try to find out what the other party wants, and you see how you can accommodate this. Another element from negotiation is when we look at the win-win situation. We want to find a win-win outcome. And what are the characteristics? Now, win-win cooperations or win-win results are the best guarantee for a good cooperation. It's what we want to have. And when we have a win-win agreement, we can categorize them by the following elements. There is the character, we have integrity, there is value, and we are sharing things. There is trust between the parties, and the approach, the situation is considered from both perspectives. So we look at the situation from both perspectives. And like I said before, we try to find how we can accommodate what the other party wants and give it to them if it doesn't cost us too much money. So we try to find a way to satisfy the other party. Here is some example of a negotiation. An example I gave it a little bit different name in the course, but I talk about the pumpkin dilemma. And the pumpkin dilemma is about two companies who are fighting to buy the pumpkins for Halloween. The thing is that both of them are just thinking about buying the pumpkin. Some of them want to make masks from it. Other people want to make or want to use the seeds or different things. But the parties at the beginning are just considering buying the pumpkins because they want to have the pumpkins. When you look at this, the identification of what you really need, like I said before, one party wants to use the pumpkins for carving, while the other party wants to have the seeds. When the people are negotiating, they may just be facing the fact that they want to have the pumpkins. But once you identify that there are two different needs, somebody needs the outside of the pumpkin, while somebody else wants the seeds, the inside of the pumpkin. And here, the solution is that you can identify ways to satisfy the two parties without compromising. And at the end, both parties are winning. And that's the main important thing that you want to have. So negotiations is not only about finding a solution, but it's also finding different possible solutions to satisfy all the different parties. Another element we have here is planning. And we have a model that has been developed by Barry Boehm. And we look at the different elements. And Barry Boehm identified that when we have a more advanced planning, the more we plan, it reduces uncertainty during project execution. It is clear when we try to do the planning, when we try to find out, it is possible that we understand the project better and we find all the different elements. On the other hand, too much planning delays the payback and it takes a longer time before we get our money back. This model helps to optimize the time for planning. What is the optimal time for planning? Another element we have are the different process groups. We've seen these before: initiation, planning, execution, closing, and monitoring control. These are the process groups that we have in the project management process. Initiation creates the charter, planning creates the plan, execution is about the deliverables, closing is about the knowledge and lessons, and of course we have to monitor the work that we are doing, and we have to control the things we are doing. So this is the process group element that we will use in projects. It's typically for project management. Another element is the salience model for stakeholder classification. We identify 3 different levels. We look at the power of the people, the legitimacy, and the urgency. The power relates to the ability to influence the outcome of deliverables. Legitimacy looks at the authority level of the involvement of the stakeholders and what is that involvement on the project. And then urgency is about expectations related to responses. Now we are interested in the intersections, and let's have a look at those different intersections here. The center part where we have urgency, legitimacy, and power, we find here what is critical. The core is critical, and these are the people we have to focus on. The stakeholders who are in this area are the stakeholders that are very important for the project. We look at dominant when we have power and legitimacy. Here we have to focus on the expectations of the people. Dangerous, here we have power and urgency. We have to engage and keep the people satisfied. We have dependent, here we have urgency and legitimacy. There is no power, but they could be in support of other people. It's always important to understand how these four different parts, different type of people can influence each other. Another element we have are the latent stakeholders. These are the stakeholders who only get involved when something serious happens. So we have to keep them at a low level involved. There may be demanding stakeholders. These are the people that think they need immediate attention, so we can give some attention to them. They may become dangerous if you don't give that attention. There are some discretionary people that you want to keep happy, you keep them in the loop. They're not really of importance, but you just keep them happy, you let them know where everything is going. And then we have what we call non-stakeholders. They may be stakeholders in the future, but they are not stakeholders at this moment. Now let's have a look where we have those different models and where they interact with the different performance domains. When we look at conflict, we see that conflict interacts with the team and the stakeholder and the project work performance domain. Negotiation, here we have an interaction with the stakeholder performance domain, the planning, the project work, and the delivery performance domain. The planning model interacts with the development approach and life cycle performance domain, with the planning performance domain and project work performance domain. Now we look at the process groups. We talk about they interact with the planning domain, the project work domain, the delivery domain, and the measurement domain. And finally, the salience model interacts with the planning domain, performance domain, of course, the project work performance domain, and that's it. So here we have an overview of those different models that we classified as other because they are not really belonging to a specific category. That was it for this video. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button, and every time we have a new video, YouTube will inform you about it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in our next videos. Bye bye.